This recording was made as a part of the Voices of SJC Oral History Project by St. Joseph's College Honors Program students in the fall 2020 semester. It was recorded on Friday, November 6th, 2020 at 12:30 p.m. over Zoom. The interviewers are Kimberly Hronek, Victoria Parachi, Josiah Samuels, Sambhav Shesa, Michaela Speliotis, and Angelina Stabile. The narrator is Sister Nancy Gilchriest.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with the first question. As you know, during your time at St. Joe's, not only did you major in mathematics, but you were also actively engaged in math club and competitions. And as a math major myself, I'd like to ask, what made you fall in love with mathematics, or like what pushed you to pursue the degree?
Well, thank you, Sambhav, for this question, and thank you all for this chance to have this conversation. As I think about your question, I have to say that falling in love with math for me is part nurture and part nature. And my educational psychology students will appreciate that comment. At least I hope they will. By nurture, I mean that I wanted to be a math teacher since I was in high school because I was always good at explaining the examples to my friends and my classmates. But I fell in love with math when I got to St. Joseph's College because of the math faculty here, starting with Professor Karen O, who was very patient with all of us in calculus, and then Sister Pat McKenna, who delightfully engaged us all in the intermediate math classes, and finishing with Dr. David Holtzman, who arrived in my senior year to challenge and inspire us. In a word, math was awesome because of the nurturing atmosphere of the math department faculty. As for the nature part, my sisters and my family would tell you that you can tell I'm a math person by the way I cut a birthday cake. I guess very mathematically. I don't know. I don't see it, but they do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess like stemming off of that, first, like now it's very common, you know, for women to be pushed towards STEM and going into STEM programs, like whether it be getting medical degrees or in like science programs or math programs such as yours. So I was wondering, since you were attending St. Joe's in the 80s, like if there were any like setbacks when applying, or like if there was any like, I guess you could say like disapproval towards it because it is going like, I guess, a more male dominated field.
Thank you, Victoria, for your question. Honestly, there were no setbacks for me when I was applying to St. Joseph's, only blessings. When I arrived for my incoming freshman registration, I was assigned Sister Ann Edmond as my advisor. And now this was pre-SJC 100 days when you got a class on how to get used to St. Joseph's. But Sister Ann Edmond was as supportive and encouraging as our SJC 100 faculty are today. And Sister continued to be an advisor for me throughout my college career. So in my class of math ed people, I think 60% of the class were math majors, and they were all females. So there was no, a problem with that.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to bounce off of Victoria's question, we looked at one of the past interviewees, Mrs. Mary Macchiarola. I'm sorry if I butchered her name. She graduated in 1962, and she mentioned there wasn't much like choice in choosing your curriculum. So was this different or very similar to campus life in the 80s, or did you guys have more freedom or similar amounts?
Thanks, Kim, for this question. I remember there was a vast array of choices for what courses I could take. And there was the core of liberal arts, just as you have a core now, which allowed me to take religion and art, British history, world history, music, English literature, sign language, and of course, the ever popular beginning badminton and bowling. As electives, in addition to my math requirements and my education requirements. In fact, I had the opportunity to take so many history electives that I was inducted into the Phi Mu chapter of the Phi Alpha Theta History Honor Society.
Wow.
Exactly. I'm probably one of the few non-history majors who have that honor. But once I took a history course from Sister Joseph Damien, I was hooked. So I just had to take every course she offered. So I did not find a constraint in the course curriculum that was offered.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, going off the theme of math and student life in the 1980s, I see that you were part of the Math Club, Political Affairs Club, the Gaelic Society, the SJC Folk Group, Footprints, Peace and Justice Committee, Psychology Club, Religious Affairs Club, and Student Council. What motivated you to be involved in these different clubs and organizations?
I appreciate your question, Josiah, because I thoroughly enjoyed my time at St. Joseph's, and I thoroughly enjoyed the extracurricular experiences. I love everything about St. Joseph's. I did then. As soon as I walked in the door, I felt at home, and I continue to feel that way. Honestly, it was my friends and my professors who motivated me to join as many different clubs as I did.
To kind of like lean off of Josiah's question, I was curious to know, was there like a process implemented in order to start a club at SJC like there is today? Because I just having friends that have started clubs, I know that they have to have like a list of 10 students that would like actively join the meetings, and like just so they know that they're not funding a meeting that there's only 2 people attending. So I was wondering if there was any process related or similar to what we have today.
Thank you, Michaela, for your question. You know, I was never formally involved in creating a club, but I do know that there was a process, because our very own Sister Marie Mackey, who's the campus minister of the Brooklyn campus, she started the Gaelic Society Club when we were students together. So I know there was a process. I also recall that Sister Teresa Avila was the dean of students, and she had Sherry Van Arnhem as her assistant, and they both spent hours trying to do what the students wanted. So I'm sure there was a process.
Just to follow up on those, I'm just curious, were people that were active members of the club, or were there many active members of the club, or was there usually like just a select few, like maybe let's say like 4 students in a club, like there wasn't very many people that would always continuously attend meetings?
Right. I think with many things, there's always a core group of dedicated individuals.
Yes.
And depending on whether the club was sponsoring an activity or not, the participation increased. But I do remember with the Gaelic Society, we could order St. Joseph's College Gaelic Society jackets to march in the parade. And
oh, wow.
That was a sea of green jackets. So at that time, there were a lot of students.
Yes. And then I was just curious to know, were the people who were involved in the clubs like well-known students, such as like students who were best in their class, or were clubs known to be like an all or welcome activity on campus? Because I know like today, just like I'm not very active in clubs, but the ones that I have attended, like they're always like whoever wants to come, like come anytime. Like it's not very like inclusive type of thing.
Yes. If you're interested, come.
That's nice that it kept that environment.
Yes. I think that's part of the magic of St. Joseph's College that you don't find in other institutions.
Yes, I agree. And then, sorry, just to finish up, I was just curious to know if you were proud of the large variety of clubs that SJC has today, because just to name a few, I know that the Pride Club, the Philosophy Club, and there's many clubs that are major oriented. Mm-hmm. So I was just curious to know what your opinion on all of those were.
Well, you know, I think the wide variety of clubs is reflective of the embrace of the liberal arts education at St. Joseph's. That, you know, and as educators ourselves, either present or future, we recognize that, you know, you don't have to being good at one thing doesn't mean you can't be good at another. And right. All the gifts and talents should be celebrated. And therefore they deserve a club or an activity.
I have a small follow-up question. Our school no longer publishes Footprints yearbooks. And you were a member of the club, and I would very much love to have a Footprints yearbook when I graduate. So how was your experience on on the committee, or what was it like to be able to look through all of the photos from your college experience and be able to take those with you after you graduated?
Thanks for the question, Angelina. I have to say that as I was preparing these questions, I did recall the great fun it was putting together the yearbook. I was the yearbook editor for 2 years for Footprints. So hours and hours. But, you know, in those days, it was, you know, the last century, my friends. So nothing was digital. So everything was paper. So it was a very tedious, time-consuming job to measure and crop and manually crop instead of just hitting a button and letting all the excess drop away. I do know there are institutions, high schools, for example, who have virtual yearbooks. And I don't know if that's an option at St. Joseph's College, but if that isn't, I would maybe going out on a limb, and maybe we want to edit this part, but see if you could find out if that would be a possibility, if it doesn't exist already, because the memories of St. Joseph's College really are captured in the photos. So I would encourage you to pursue that.
Thank you, that's helpful.
I also had like another follow-up going back what Michaela was saying. So, and just
yes,
so you were involved in a lot of different clubs. I know personally for me this semester, I became more involved in like the science club, and I also took up tutoring to help under students.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, what was it like juggling all those different types of responsibilities as well as working with your coursework? Because I know for me, like, it's been kind of stressful so far. So yeah.
Well, I guess being a math person, I'm pretty good at managing my time, whether I recognize that or not. So, and I spent every waking hour in the Red Room, which I don't know that it's called the Red Room anymore. It's on the first floor as you go through from the chapel area through, and the first room where the kitchen is.
Yeah.
To us, that was the Red Room. It was never painted red, but that's what it was called. And so I was there all the time when I wasn't in class or when I wasn't going to a club. So it was just a natural flow of, oh, today is political affairs, tomorrow is math club, then I have yearbook after that. I have to practice for the folk group. It was just, I was on campus all the time.
Okay. That's good.
So I just wanted to ask you, we know that you were in the political affairs club, and we wanted to know like how you got involved and like what kind of activity, well, we know what kind of activities, but like what did you guys specifically do on campus as like the political affairs club?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kim, for your question. But honestly, I joined the political affairs club because of the moderator, Sister Joan Ancilla Burke. She was such a shining example of how important it was to be knowledgeable about the political world. I just felt that as I was becoming an adult, I'm still becoming an adult, it would be important for me to learn as much as I could about political affairs. Mm-hmm. The activities we had, we sponsored guest speakers. We encouraged voting, especially in national and local elections, because I was at St. Joseph's from 79 to 83. So the presidential election of 1980, we were very much involved in having the students be active in that.
Mm-hmm. And so continuing on the whole like political club, how do you think that the club would be going about the current political climate? Like, do you think there would be any like crazy events happening for you guys if, let's say, COVID wasn't a factor?
Right. Well, if I know anything about a St. Joseph's College student or the St. Joseph's College student body, from when I was a student or from now as a privileged faculty, crazy events are just the nature. And creativity is a fabulous thing that happens at St. Joseph's. When I think of the in current political climate, I take more of a serious stance. And I think the Political Affairs Club would strive to embrace the SJC banner of integrity in providing opportunities that were fair and unbiased and balanced because of the reality that we're in today.
Mm-hmm. And one last question based on the Political Affairs Club. What was like the most important like political event that you think happened as a student or teacher with your time at SJC? Like, was there anything that like really like affected you and like you felt like really just connected with you in any certain way?
Well, Kim, you're 3 for 3 with your questions. So, and I have to say, this is the one that stumped me most.
Really?
Yes, because when I think about the aspects, political aspects of history during my time of SJC, you know, that's 40 years.
Yeah.
So I Googled 40 years of history, you know, and there were some remarkable, wonderful celebrations of the beauty of people, and there were many challenges that the political world has faced. So, you know, there's nothing that one particular event that stands out in my mind, but again, it's that notion of integrity that resonates most strongly with me, because there are many events in the past 40 years that have been sadly lacking in that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also have one follow-up questions about math club. Right now, like, we don't have a math club, and it is integrated with computer science clubs. So most of the activities like we do are more about computer science, and I mean about math, like it's like none. So what are the activities like during your time at math club? Like,
well, there was really no strong computer science major or department or concentration when I was at St. Joseph, so it was math. And so we would sponsor math competitions. We would challenge each other in math, chess games, particularly. We would try to offer ourselves to be judges for math competitions in elementary schools.
Mm-hmm.
So they were fun. They were fun.
Yeah, I think the chess game is like really great idea for like
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And remember, the math club would be the only one that counts.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess for me now, I have like another question that I wanted to ask. So after graduating from SJC in 1983, you went to go study math education at the Teachers College for Columbia University, and you continue your education at St. John's, pursuing your ED, Educational Administration and Supervision. So you kind of answered this earlier. I was mainly asking, like, education has always been one of your core interests, and I guess kind of goes back before. I guess why would you pick? I don't even mean, but you say you really loved math, so I guess it goes back to saying getting your master's in math education rather than mathematics. So going towards the teaching aspect of it.
Yes. Thank you, Victoria. You know, you've hit the nugget of my career, because, well, yes, I was good at math, but it was the math education that really was a part of who I was deep down. Absolutely. You know, I always thought I had the best job in the world when I was a high school math teacher. Now I know the absolute best job in the world is teaching people about teaching. You know, there's that Chinese proverb that says, if you give a person a fish, you'll feed that person for a day. But if you teach a person to fish, you'll feed that person for a lifetime. And if I can help just one person by teaching, then I'll be happy.
Very nice. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is also about your teaching career. So I know that you graduated from St. Joseph's College with the Bachelor of Science in Mathematics in 1983. I want to know, what was your reason for coming back to teach at St. Joseph's College in 2006? And did you teach anywhere else?
Thank you, Josiah. Upon completion of my doctorate in 2001, I had the privilege of teaching and being the chair of the education department at Notre Dame of Maryland University in Baltimore. That's one of the colleges that my congregation, the School Sisters of Notre Dame, run. And since I just had received my doctorate and the nuns had sent me there, they asked that I would go and teach at that college, which was good for me. You know, that was great. I was just delighted to be teaching in college. In 2006, so I was there for 5 years. In 2006, my dear mother was becoming more and more frail. So I asked my community, the nuns in charge of me, if I could move back to the New York area. so I could be closer to my mom and help out. And so I spoke with Sister Margaret Buckley, who taught me when I was a student, all the education courses, and to this day continues to teach me. And I mentioned to her that I was returning to the New York area, and Sister Margaret suggested that I apply to SJC. And as they say, the rest is history.
Would you be able to share with us a small moment from either your teaching at St. Joseph's or at other institutions that really cemented your admiration for teaching and education? General or specific, just something that really stands out to you as this is why I really enjoy teaching. This happened.
Angelina, I have to say that the end of every class is what cements my love of teaching, because the magic that happens, sometimes I'm a part of it, sometimes I'm just there for the ride. Honestly, it just, you know, we finished class today and I just smiled at the fun we had, or at least I think the fun we had, as we continue to become the best people we can be. So it's not, you know, at that moment on September 8th on, you know, whatever, I decided this is, it happens for me every period I teach.
I greatly enjoy your ed psych class. It's very inspirational as someone going into education. So I agree with you on that.
Thanks.
So I wanted to talk about the National Science Foundation Award. So you were one of the co-principal investigators along with Dr. David Cipala-Holtzman as the principal investigator for the National Science Foundation Award from 2011 to 2017. And SJC was awarded $1.2 million for the STEM program. I guess primarily I want to ask, what was the first step in wanting to get the grant for the Noyce Scholarship Project from the school?
Okay, so I'll answer that and then you might have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the math department at St. Joseph's has a long history in receiving NSF grants and awards. And so the Noyce Scholarship was one of them. The reason that it was pursued was the very essence of our proposal, which was to focus on increasing the number of math and science teachers, in particular women and students from underrepresented populations, to go through our education program and to commit to teaching in high needs schools. So it was the desire to have the scholarship money to support those young people with that focus.
Oh, okay. So would you say then, like, was there other competition from other schools, or I guess what made St. Joe's be the one to stand out and receive this substantial amount of money?
Well, you know, with any kind of grant application, you never know who else has applied, but the Noyce Scholarship and any NSF grant is very prestigious. So I imagine that there were many, many applicants. Why St. Joseph's was picked, besides the fact that the 9 of us know that St. Joseph's is the best, I think it was the focus on high needs students, high need schools, students who are in a high need area who deserve the quality of educators that St. Joseph's produces.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a really good reason, because for me, like past experiences I've done was helping volunteer at some schools near my area, like that have, like, I guess you can say our lower needs. So going in and like doing like after school activities with them, it really does make a difference. And I think that's also why personally, like going towards STEM and helping other people is very worthwhile, as you mentioned before. And it goes back with teaching as well.
Yes. Thank you, Victoria.
Okay, so I would like to ask about like your sisterhood. You took your final vow to become school sister of Notre Dame in 1994. And so when did you decide that you would become like a sister, and like what motivated you to take that route in life?
Thank you, Bob. As I identified earlier, the question that was the hardest for me to answer, that really made me think, this one was the easiest, because it's just who I am. So I am grateful for the opportunity to share my story with such fine young people as yourselves. You know, the greatest gift my parents gave my sisters and myself was the gift of our faith. And knowing and loving God was always a big part of our lives. So when I had sisters in elementary school and high school, I thought about becoming a nun. But, you know, I thought to myself, nobody does that anymore, so I don't have to think about it. And then I came to St. Joseph's College, where I encountered firsthand the Sisters of St. Joseph, brilliant, experienced educational leaders who began their school day at Mass with us, the students. Sister George Ackman, Sister Mary Florence, Sister Margaret Buckley, Sister Elizabeth Hill, Sister Ann Edmond. I could give you a list. And there they were, busy as they were, brilliant as they were, started their day praying with and for us. That action showed me that one's faith is always more important than one's ministry, which made me realize that people still do that, enter the convent, and I wanted to be one of those people, and I could not be happier.
Thank you for your answer. I also have a small follow-up question.
Sure.
So after being a school sister of Notre Dame, like how has it changed your perspectives in life?
This, of course, comes with a story. Okay. When I graduated from St. Joseph's College, I taught math at my alma mater, St. Xavier High School in Brooklyn. And I enjoyed every minute of it. And I was pretty good at it, you know. And so then I entered the convent. And one of the first stages of becoming a nun is to be a novice. And when you're a novice for the SSNDs, that means you volunteer in a ministry where you have no experience. So you can learn to rely on God, and God using the gifts that maybe you haven't used before. So for me, I was sent to tutor math at a GED program for women who were getting out of prison. Now, to my novice mind, I thought this was a great deal because after all, I was a great teacher. So this is going to be an easy gig, you know? So everything was going well until one day when one of the women with whom I worked, Mary, arrived for our tutoring session. I had been working with Mary for several weeks and she was really getting it, you know? So I thought this was good. So I had a lot of worksheets for us to work together. So when Mary sat next to me, I looked at her and I saw that her face was completely black and blue. She had been beaten up by former friends and had nowhere to go but the tutoring center. So I started with the first example on the worksheet, and she started to cry. And at that moment, I realized that the only thing for me to do was to sit with Mary and support her as best I could. I realized then, as I have known every day since, that the person is most important in teaching, not the subject. That day as an SSND novice, Mary taught me the greatest lesson in my life as a teacher. You know, the foundress of the SSNDs, Blessed Teresa of Jesus Gerhardinger, once said, love is the sign through which people should be convinced that we believe in Jesus. And I try to live that every day.
Thank you. That is a really great answer.
Thanks.
I have a small follow-up based off of what Sambhav asked. Because I was just thinking about when you said that when you came to St. Joseph's, like the people around you kind of like influenced you to become a sister. Do you think that you yourself convinced anyone, or like anyone in your family or like friends or anyone just influenced them to be like you, basically?
Well, you know, Michaela, I think when I hang up, you can ask my student who is among your peers here. You know, answering the call to religious life is really the response to God's invitation. Mm-hmm. And so I just try to show how happy one can be if it's the right fit in responding to God's invitation. So the call to religious life, just as the call to the single life or the call to the married life, is really who it is that God wants you to be, the best person you can be.
Right.
I hope that that some young women might recognize that this is a valid choice, a viable option, very life-giving. And I pray for them, as I pray for all of my students.
Thank you.
Sister Nancy, I just freaked out that you said that you went to St. Xavier, because so did I. I graduated from there in 2019.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I had the best 4 years. I just wanted to ask you, what were your, do you remember your song contest songs? Because I have a little box of like all my memories, and I put the lyrics of all of them in there and like all these different things.
Wow. I remember as freshmen, we'll try not to bore the rest of you. As freshmen, we did Rock Around the Clock. We're gonna rock around St. Xavier, rock around the clock. We were the 50s. Those were our songs. And my senior year, we were Send in the Send in the Clowns.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the two songs I remember most.
And did you guys have the up and down staircase the way we do now? Like it was like very specific, and people would always get mad if you went down the up staircase?
Well, I have to say that wasn't the case when I was a student, but I was at St. Xavier's 3 times. I was there as a student. Then when I graduated from St. Joseph's, I was there as Miss Gilchriest before I entered the convent. And then I came back as a nun from 1994 to 2000. And I was Sister Nancy, and I was Dean of Students. And I think I was one of the people that created the up-down.
No way. Do you know Sister Barbara and Sister Ann?
Of course.
They were my teachers freshman and sophomore year, and then they left, and I was really, really sad. I think I cried for like a day.
Sister Ann worked at St. Joseph's College when I was a student.
She told me that, and I totally kind of blanked on it, but I'm literally looking at a picture of St. Xavier that someone painted like right in front of me.
Wow.
So I got so excited when you said that, because my best friends are all from St. Xavier, so
There you go.
we're St. Xavier sisters.
But I'm sure all of you went to equally wonderful high schools. Not just not the best, right, Kim?
Exactly.
Actually,
I can still hear the song playing in my head, our alma mater song.
Yes, I'll start it, but I'd have to stand up. So.
Relating back to Sambab, did you have another question?
I don't know. I just wanted to say that like the name of my high school was also St. Xavier's High School. So.
Oh, Keen, where was that?
It was in my country, Nepal, and it was one of the like most prestigious high school like in my country.
With the most impressive graduates.
Yeah.
Sure. Being one of them, right? Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Relating back to Sambab's question, I have a question for you now. How would you say St. Joseph's College has upheld their Catholic values? Would you say our school had stronger ties to Catholic traditions when you attended St. Joe's, or have they just adapted their approach?
Thanks, Angelina, for your first question, your first official question, I think, on the paper. You know, as we know, the greatest commandments are to love God and to love one's neighbor, both of which are evident everywhere I look at St. Joseph's College. And when I think of Catholic traditions, I think of the concrete parts of my faith that bring richness to my life. But I believe that traditions are influenced by the time in which one lives. So the Catholic traditions of the St. Joseph's College students today that are important to you may be different from mine, but St. Joseph's has strong ties to both of them, because in the spirit of the Sisters of St. Joseph's College has great respect for the dear neighbor, for the other, and for the dear neighbor's traditions as well.
I remember we went as freshmen, we were introduced to the mantra, respect your dear neighbor. That always stuck with me. So it was nice to hear it again. So you received your doctorate of education from St. John's University in 2001. In addition, you are now associate professor and education department chair at our school, St. Joseph's College. As someone who is studying to be an educator myself, and would say that I also value religion very highly, I'm interested to hear From you, how do you believe, or do you believe, being an educator has strengthened your connection to your faith?
Would you permit me to tell one more story?
Go for it. I want to hear it.
When I earned my doctorate, my dissertation advisor gave me an unusual gift. The gift was a nameplate for my desk. Now, you might not think that's an unusual gift, but it was because there were two nameplates that you could slide in. One said, Dr. Nancy Gilchriest, SSND, and the other nameplate said, Sister Nancy Gilchriest, EDD. And she explained to me that she knew that my title sister meant so much to me that she wanted me to have the option. So to answer your question, I would like to rephrase it, if I may, and say, being a person of faith, how has that strengthened my life as an educator? When I stand in front of my students, in person or by Zoom, I am in awe of the beauty and mystery of God's people. Whether they've been high school freshmen in an algebra class, graduate students pursuing their dream to become principals, or college sophomores in ed psych, I believe it is my sacred duty and privilege to help them become the best people God wants them to be. And that happens every day in the classroom with the help of the Holy Spirit. So now may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Which nameplate do you think I use?
I would say that you use Sister Nancy because we call you Sister Nancy in class. And I always wondered that if I was calling you the appropriate name. And based on your answer saying that being a person of faith has impacted you as a teacher, not vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
A+.
Good. So this might be a little self-serving, but what would you tell prospective educators is the most important thing to remember going into their first years of teaching?
It's a journey of a lifetime, and not just your own. Mm-hmm. But the privilege of being a part of the lives of the young people who are in front of you. And it's well worth the journey.
Thank you.
Michaela, I forgot to say that another hat I wear is vocation director for the School Sisters of Notre Dame. So I also have the privilege of working with young people, young men and young women, as they look to see how God is inviting them in their lives.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to go back when you were talking about your story with Mary at the facility. You highlighted that the student is the top priority, not the subject. So I was wondering, how would that go and tie now during COVID for teachers when they are teaching online? Like how well they would adapt to dealing with student needs, as well as themselves having to adapt to going online, like that dynamic, like what your thoughts would be on that.
Thank you, Victoria. What a great question. I like to think that I make every effort for my students to know that they continue to be the most important. Often I begin class with just a recap of, do you have any questions? Is there anything that's going on in class that you're not certain of, or is there something that confuses you? When we were around midterms a couple of weeks ago, I also invited the students just to say, how are things going? I teach a class in Patchogue and I teach a class in Brooklyn. And so in the class in Patchogue has 30 students and the class in Brooklyn has 20. So that's really different. And I have to say, I won't talk for 44 minutes, relax, I'm gonna be here for 2 o'clock, but to be able to see the faces on the screen really is so important to me, so critically important to any encounter of teaching and learning. So in the Patchogue class, not all 30 students fit on the screen. And so I have to keep changing the screen back and forth. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can see everybody and then have another computer screen where I can, you know, show the PowerPoint or whatever. But it's that ongoing desire to know that we are all learning, and we will stumble. You know, no journey is smooth. But what's nice to know is that when you stumble, there's a hand to grab you. And if my students know that my hand is there, then I've done my job.
That's very nice, I think. I think it does help when professors also reach out, or any teachers, and say that they too understand that this is just weird and crazy times we're all going through.
Yes.
Would you think now, if things ever go back to our normal routines, the teaching style will be different from now on? Now that like schools are open to using Zoom, would they still continue to use Zoom, or do you think there will be a lot of pushback to just going back to our natural setting?
Yes, there are advantages insofar as in my Brooklyn class, there are some students who are from Patchogue who the schedule didn't fit and they had to take the Friday class. And so it's a chance for Patchogue to get to know Brooklyn and Brooklyn to get to know Patchogue on a one-to-one level. But there's nothing like being in the classroom with my dear students. So I would be there in a heartbeat.
So I also had a question. So how has your teaching style changed, if it has changed because of this?
Great question, Josiah. Every day it changes. Just because I want to make it as best as I can. You know, you're computer information technology, right? So you're the man I should have known in September, because, you know, I really never used Canvas much, only maybe to post the PowerPoints, but now everything is in Canvas because my two classes are completely virtual, completely remote. But, you know, I very much value group conversation, small group. So I forced myself to learn how to do the breakout sessions. Now, when I hang up, Angelina can tell you how successful I am with them, but I'm becoming much more of a learner. Ed Psych is my favorite class to teach, and I've taught it my entire teaching career at the college level. So I've taught it since 2001. I've taught it longer than probably many of you have been alive. So when a teacher becomes so used to the material, sometimes it can become rote and routine and doesn't have a spark. I try for that not to happen. But going remote has forced me to be creative in what I can do. But I have to tell you, don't tell the others, but it takes me like 3 times as long to get ready for class now than it did any other semester, because I want it all to work.
Yeah, tradition has been very hard on teachers and students.
Yeah.
You may be. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You
Oh,
may
I
be
just have.
happy- I'm sorry. This
You
is so
go,
awkward.
no, you go.
Okay. You may be happy to know that your efforts with getting student involvement and students talking to each other has worked, because I have made friends that I would not know otherwise because of your breakout rooms. So I hope that's encouraging to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Can I take the rest of the semester off?
Go for it.
I just wanted to ask a very random question. Like, cause everything's so like online based, like specifically right now, like I felt like even like when like the past 2 years, because I'm a junior now, so I feel like when I was a freshman and sophomore, like people would always like make references like, yeah, like technology is gonna be like so like the main like focus of education, but like now, since like we like actually can't have like an interview or like meetings like this unless it's over the computer, do you think that it's gonna be more like this in the future? Like if let's say like 2 students out of a group of 10 can't make a meeting, the professor's just going to be like, let's just do it on Zoom then. Like, do you think it's going to be like that, or you think that education is going to kind of just slowly shift back to how it was before this?
My hope for the future of education would be that the best of both worlds carry forth. So
that's what I would expect.
You know, to be able to meet And because there's nothing like seeing faces and nothing like just having just these conversations. You can't imagine how many times I get around a classroom when we're together, but I can't sort of pick up my, and do that virtual. So, but it does allow you, for example, it allows you to connect with students who are taking educational psychology at our college in Japan, for example. And what a rich experience that would be. So, with time and grace, I hope it all gets better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kim, the next time I speak with Mrs. Bernstein, I'll tell her you said hello.
She was my best friend. I was in that woman's office every day.
She's my best friend.
But so that means Miss Draghi, Miss Posler.
Of course.
Miss Posler's outlines. She went to Zavarian. I don't know if you know this.
Yes.
But when she I emailed her, and I can't email her anymore because she doesn't have a St. Xavier email. But I wanted to reach out to her and tell her that those outlines saved me my first semester as a nursing student, because I would sit and I would read the chapter and I would do the outlines, and I was like, let me just try it, maybe it'll really help. I was in the honors program at St. Xavier, and then I did AP history for her sophomore and junior year.
Very nice.
So
when Miss Postler first came to St. Xavier's, now if any of this comes out, I'll have to kill all of you. When she was first faculty member at St. Xavier's, she expressed the desire that she always wanted to be Cher of Sonny and Cher, right? So we were having a talent show. It was more like a variety because nobody had talent. And so we tried to convince one of the male teachers to be Sonny to her Cher. And the afternoon of the evening performance, he dropped out. So she was devastated. So I put a mustache on, got down on my knees so I would be shorter, and I was her Sonny, and she was my. So if ever you speak to Miss Postler again, you can say, "Hey, I met somebody who said she was your Sonny to your Cher."
I'll tell her. I have her on Facebook, so I could send her a little message. But she told us the story about how the first time she heard the birthday song, she thought there was a fight breaking out in the cafeteria because she didn't understand why. However many girls, 50 girls, were flocking towards another girl.
Yes.
We still sing that. When my friends and I are out for each other's birthdays, we still sing that song, and everybody gets scared of us in the restaurant.
Well, I think there might be other reasons. Just kidding.
That just made me so happy because I don't get to connect with St. Xavier alum besides the people that I knew in my 4 years. So knowing someone now that really that just makes me so happy.
Anytime. And you have my email, all of you. You have my email. My new best friends.
All right, well, then I think this was a really good interview.
Well, thanks, Victoria. I think we all did. We rose to the occasion.
You did, especially with Zoom and virtual and trying to be able to manage this. But it was a very good interview. I really had a lot of fun.
Thank you. I did too.
Thank you so much, Sister Nancy.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you, Sister Nancy.
You're welcome, Angelina. I'll see you next Friday.
I'll see you then.
Okay. Bye. Blessings. If there's anything I can do, please email me.
Yes.
Thank
All right.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.